as physical, mental, spiritual. Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis.
Hey, good afternoon, evening, wherever you're at in the United States and the world. This is Mike Hollis with Zealous Wellness. I apologize for the late delay. We had a little technical issues, but we're up and running. And just wanted to, welcome you all here. And the focus on today, we're going to talk a little bit about kind of the mental side of life, more so with kicking. I did a lot of coaching today, so I'm in that coaching mode right now, and a lot of the things that I'm teaching my athletes is the mental side of kicking, but it's not what you might think. And so this all kind of applies to just life in general, your health and wellness journey, your decisions, your daily decisions. There's a million of them you're going to make every single day. So a lot of this is how to really, navigate through how you're going to focus on, what kind of decisions you're going to make and what kind of mental attitude you're going to have about them. And I think a lot differently than a lot of people. Of course, playing in the NFL, and I'm going to focus a little bit on obviously kicking and what I did in the NFL, but I really want to make sure that people understand there's a different way of thinking about things in general life and just things that you're going to do on a daily basis, and they affect you in a very positive or negative way, whichever you look at it. So I'm definitely going to touch upon a different way of thinking that's going to apply to your everyday thought process, and it kind of boils down to starting with the kicking process and really where it comes from and where your energy needs to be focused upon, because a lot of people run into issues where they don't deal with life's bullets, we'll say, just issues that come at us on a daily basis. They don't deal with them very well. And a lot of it has to do with really where your focus is on what you're worrying about, what is it that's under your direct control, and primarily what's not in your control too, because I think that gets a lot of people in trouble. Again, everything that I refer to, I've been a victim of as well myself, and so I'm learning from my experiences. But getting to the highest level of football in the world and playing at the highest level like that is very challenging. And you have to kind of you have to learn a little bit, and I'm here to kind of share my experiences with things that I've dealt with in my entire life that have started with football and the discipline and everything that came with it. So with that said, we're going to pause here for a word from our sponsor, and I will be right back to get into the nuts and bolts of the mental side of kicking, and more specifically, I'm going to focus on a term that I kind of came up with a while back. It's called careless confidence, and we're going to talk about that as soon as we get back. But here's a word from our sponsor.
At 3, we want to give you the true health benefits that you're paying for, something you can feel and see a difference quickly. Each product is packed with powerful plant-based nutrients that are combined through a proprietary curation process and then infused with innovative cellular absorption technologies to ensure the nutrients absorb into the cells for maximum wellness. The quality and effectiveness of our life-changing products is evident by their approval to be included in the well-known Prescriber's Digital Reference, or PDR. PDR has been a valuable resource to the medical doctors and providers in the healthcare community for decades. Our products are GMO-free, clinically studied, and third-party tested, all designed to support health and proactive wellness for everyone.
So welcome back. The thing with life in general and just kind of the things you deal with on a daily basis, it comes down to really your mindset and what it is you can control and how you think about certain situations. And just getting right into it, I want to focus on, give you kind of an idea of what it was like getting into the NFL to begin with, because it was very challenging. At my size, I'm 5'8" on a really good day, and 180 pounds or so, and kind of an average athlete, a little bit above average athlete. I never say I'm the most incredibly athletic guy out there. I never was in high school, but it took a lot of mental strength to kind of deal with a lot of the rejection that I had. So it was kind of not only that, but just the process of kicking and learning a technique that did really well for me, and understanding there's going to be failure, and everything in general everyday life, you're going to fail, but you have to understand those are good. People think of failures as terrible things, but they're really not. They're good things because they're learning experiences, and so you have to understand we all are going to fail. But it's how you deal with a failure, and that goes into obviously the mental side of it too. You have to understand about the concept of learning how to improve from a failure. And I did that all my life, and I still do to this day. To this day, I still have failures. I still I'm learning. I'm still discovering things that I could do better. And so, I believe, we're put on this earth to do all of the above. We're meant to fail. We're meant to learn from our failures, and we're meant to become better people because of all of that. So ultimately, with the mental side of really where I'm going with this is that term that I just mentioned prior to the word from our sponsor, but it's careless confidence. And if you break that down, you think, wait, careless seems careless. Careless is not. How can you be careless in life? Well, when you get to a situation, really, what I'm referring to is finding. I always refer to, you don't need to reinvent the wheel, because the wheel works very well as is, right? So if you find a system, for example, the wheel, you don't need to reinvent it. You just need to, that's the careless part of that is the wheel itself, is the system that you've mastered. Okay. The confidence is trusting that system that you've mastered. So when you think about careless confidence, you think about the mindset when it comes to being confident about what you've done and have accomplished with a system. But the careless part of it really comes down to not caring too much about the result. And when I'm referring to kicking, I just mentioned that I just got done coaching a lot today. I had 3 or 4 kids that were, a couple of them were new kids, and I had to get into some really detailed stuff with them. And a lot of it is, just understanding the mental side of kicking. And really, it comes down to that concept of the careless part of it is knowing that your process, okay, you're confident in your process, and knowing that process is going to do all the work for you. And so you don't have to care so much about the result. And that's really where my bottom line is with regards to the kicking aspect of it, is the fact that when you're kicking a football, and I gave a kid an example today. I said, listen, do you remember when the NFL moved the extra point back to 33 yards? It used to be, back when I played, of course, a 20-yard little chip shot field goal, right? So our extra points were only 20 yards away, and guys were making them 100% of the time for the most part. I missed a couple in my entire football career, which was a lot of kicks now, over 400, 500. I don't even know how many I attempted in my whole football career, but I missed very, very few. But I'd say I blame the holder, but I take responsibility for it. It's 20 yards, you should make them. I was real careless on the first one I missed in the NFL, though. We had an interception. I was just being cocky because I thought I was pretty good, and I missed it. So I definitely learned from that experience. That was a failure for sure. And Coach Coughlin was not happy with me. So going back to my story, right? Of course, with the careless confidence aspect, you have to understand that when you're, kicking in the NFL, and I brought up a point of the kid when I was talking with him today about NFL kickers, when the NFL moved the rule, the extra point rule, to 33 yards now instead of 20 yards. So you're kicking an extra point, still labeled an extra point. That's kind of an important point that I want to touch upon, because it's embarrassing to miss an extra point. When you're looking at the stat sheet after the game or the next day, and you see your name and you see a missed extra point, you're just like, man, that is embarrassing, because everyone else sees it too. All the other kickers in the league are looking at it like, oh, Hollis missed an extra point. and so it's embarrassing. And of course the fans like, oh, why did he miss the extra point? Such an easy kick. So I get that. And that's what happens when, when that the rule change was put in effect. You had a lot of kickers in the NFL that specific year who missed a lot of these 33-yard extra points. And it really boils down to the mental side of it, because again, the point I just made about having that stigma or the embarrassment of missing an extra point, even though yes, it's 33 yards now, it's not a definite given anymore, because guys do miss, and even to this day, guys are missing extra points. I saw a couple just the other day in a playoff game. So with regards to that, though, the first year there was a lot of missed extra points, and what I'm referring to is these kickers cared too much because of exactly what I was just saying. They cared because they didn't want that stigma of missing an extra point because it's embarrassing. So they cared so much that guess what they did? They did something different. They tried to reinvent the wheel. They did a different technique. They did something. They second guessed themselves because they kicked it very carefully, the ones that they missed clearly, but these extra points all season long, they kicked them really carefully, hoping not to miss because, again, it's embarrassing. So that plays a huge role in the mental side of kicking, and that goes right to my point of the careless confidence. So if those same kickers were to attempt 33-yard field goals, now there's a difference. Extra point, field goal, same distance, okay? You got a kicker. If it was me, now, I think I would have the mental capacity and the strength to not change anything. I understand 33 yards. Yes, it might be embarrassing if I miss an extra point, but I can't do anything different. Why should I? Because here's what happened. I think a lot of guys came on, they approached they ran on the field thinking they're kicking an extra point, and they kind of tightened up. They was like second guessing, I hope I don't miss this one. I don't want to embarrass myself. But that same kicker later in the game comes in for a 33-yard field goal, no problem. Okay, so that's the thing. It's like it's a mental. Like you approach a 33-yard field goal as field goal. I got to make 3 points. I got to make it. No big deal. So I have done this a million times. Well, an extra point, it's only worth 1 point instead of 3, but still, it's that stigma. That's embarrassment of missing an extra point. And I'm telling you, that's what guys did. They second guessed themselves. They tried too hard not to miss. And if you rotate that into your everyday life, your health journey, your physical fitness journey, everything like that, you tend to, if you have that careless confidence, especially with your diet, and you know that what you're doing is right. I've always told my kickers, like, you don't expect to be an All-American kicker tomorrow. Because when you first start working with, especially the technique that I teach, it takes a process to learn. And that's the same thing I'm referring to with like diet and physical fitness. Like, you're not going to expect to bench 400 pounds on day one when you've never even lifted a weight in your life, unless you're just naturally really strong and you're like one of those guys from the Northwest the Midwest, I guess we'll say, in Nebraska, and you're hucking big hails of hay around, and you just are just physically massively strong. Now you never lift a weight in the weight room, but yeah, you could probably bench some good weight. But my point is, really getting strong like that's going to take a process. So everything in life, really, if you want to master something and get the best of your abilities, whatever it might be, there's a process that you have to go through. And I feel bad for kids sometimes these days where they got a little bit of an entitlement, where they think they're really good and they don't have to work really hard. Maybe they're really athletic and they don't feel like they got to put the work in, and they just expect, perfection all the time. And some guys are really gifted and they're able to do that. But in the most 99% of the rest of us, I say us because I was one of them too. I wasn't perfect. I had to learn a lot of stuff, and so that's what I'm referring to, is just, understanding that there's a process in life, and everything that you're doing, whether, again, it's your health journey, your physical fitness journey, or your personal growth journey. There's a process of becoming better as someone who's looking for personal growth. There's a process of becoming healthier when someone's looking for better health. You can't do it overnight. So you have to trust the process, and you have to have the confidence that the process is going to work, and you can't care too much, because if you care too much, you're going to put too high of expectations on yourself, and it's not going to work out like you think. So going back to the kicking aspect, that fits right in that line with that, because when you care too much and you try harder to make the kick, you don't get the results. That's why I told the kid today is same aspect. I said, why is it that these kickers are really good until they get into a situation where it's winning or losing a game, and they miss really bad. Like they have a kick that's not even anywhere near what they've ever really done. It's like a terrible kick. Why is that? Well, because, kickers in general, we have a lot of pressure already. Why would you add even more pressure when in reality, really, is you don't have to do anything different? And I mentioned this too in a previous podcast, I believe, that, in that situation where a kicker's kicking a game-winning kick, there's really not a whole lot different. I mean, there's the kicking job itself is the same. Now, yes, the defense will come at you a little faster because they're really wanting to block the kick, because clearly they want to win the game too. Does that mean you have to go faster? No. Does that mean you need to, kick it harder or get better height because, the guy's coming up the middle and he's a really tall guy and he can block it? No, I better get under this to get a better. No, you kick the same ball. You don't do anything different. That's what I used to think before I got into the NFL. I thought I had to do things different in different situations. And thank God someone told me along the way, no, you don't. My very first unofficial workout, guy by the name of Wayne Sevier, rest his soul. He passed away years ago, but he was the special teams coach for the Washington Redskins. And he was from the Northwest, from the Idaho area. And I had people that knew him, and we lined up an unofficial workout. And that was one of the things that he told me. And I remember to this day, I'm kicking off with the wind. He said, okay, Mike, let's switch directions and kick off against the wind. And then he asked me, he said, what are you going to do differently? Of course, I was thinking, okay, this is a question. Okay, I better get it right. Well, coach, I think I got to, maybe drive it a little bit more. He goes, nah, it's not the answer I was looking for. You got anything else? Well, I really got to make good, solid contact. And I really got to, kick it harder. I said, nah, that's really not the answer I'm looking for either. He says, you want to know the answer? I'm like, yeah, I definitely do. This is great. I'm learning. He said, nothing. The answer is nothing. You do exactly what you do. I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. If you just hit a solid ball, it's going to go. And again, going back to my point about what you can and can't control, I can't control the wind. I don't know what it's going to do to that ball. So why should I do different? Why should I try harder? Why should I do anything different than I've done a million times and been successful? Going back to that wheel again. The wheel is very successful. Why try to reinvent it? Okay. So that careless confidence really comes to the forefront when you really have tests that you in life, or obviously with kicking. I'm really referring to kicking because I've been in that kicking mode all day today, but getting into the concept of not caring so much. I've also told my kickers and my athletes, you cannot be result driven. Okay. There are a lot of kickers out there that are result driven, meaning they focus on the result and the result only. Well, if you want to be a mechanical kicker, if you want to understand a process of a system that you can repeat pretty easily every time and you're good at it, why would you care about the result? That's my point, is that the guys that are result driven are the ones who rely solely on their athletic ability in steering a football through the uprights, right? So that really doesn't jive well with me because I am such a mechanical kicker, and I learned all this, of course, because at my size, I wasn't able to compete against the Sebastian Janikowskis of the world that were just big, strong, and freakishly athletic. I couldn't compete with that at my size and my lack of athletic ability and strength. Okay, so I needed something else. I needed something a system that would help me get to that level. And so I mastered. I don't even want to say I mastered it because I don't even think I did. I asked my coach. Well, one of my kickers asked my coach one day in front of me, my coach Jim Gaetano, who taught me everything I know about kicking. He said, "Coach Jim," he says, how many perfect kicks do you think Mike had when he played in the NFL? I'm standing right there, and I'm curious to hear Jim's answer too. I'm like, okay. I've never asked him that question. I'm curious, what's he going to say? And Jim's answer was, well, Mike probably had maybe 2, possibly 3. And I looked at Jim. I'm like, wait, just 3? Maybe 3? out of 200 and something field goal attempts in my NFL career, you only gave me credit for 3 perfect ones, maybe 3, 2 for sure. He said, well, yeah, you were close on a bunch of them, clearly, because you made a lot of them, but you weren't perfect on them. I'm like, wow, that was kind of a blow. But in reality, it wasn't, because I know, I don't kick the same exact ball every time. There's guys today that kick a ball pretty much the same way every time, and the same ball, right? Well, I wasn't that good. I was good. I put the ball through the uprights, but they weren't always the same. They're pretty consistent, but it was a learning experience for me. It's like, okay, well, you don't have to be perfect to be successful. And again, going back to careless confidence, you can be careless as long as you're confident in what works. And if you change what works, that's when you're going to be careless, like in a negative sense of careless. When I say careless confidence, I'm referring to a positive careless, meaning I can't care too much. I know in the back of my mind it's important I make the kick, or that I get healthy, or that I get stronger and be more physically fit. I know that it's going to take some time. I know I got to be confident with that. But if I put too much pressure on myself and try too hard to get the results I'm looking for too early, we'll say, that's when you screw up. That's when things don't go your way. And people don't understand that. And that's really where I try to really emphasize, because I've learned this through life experiences. There's a lot of things that you deal with in your life that have those exact consequences, those exact things I'm referring to. Everything, there's always results and things that you do in everyday life. There's going to be a result. Could be a good result, could be a bad result. Okay. You have to have the confidence in knowing that the work that you put in for that result is the right work. Okay. It's successful. It's a system that works for you and others. And that's a good thing about, what people are teaching online through other podcasts like my own, clearly. But they're teaching things that they've learned through their life and what they were taught as well. And really it's a shortcut for things that, that people had put so much time and effort and experimenting on and understanding, how things work. And you have to rely on others to teach you as well. And so don't be afraid to learn. That's one thing too, that, there's a lot of stubbornness out there. There's a lot of pride. Again, everything that I'm telling you, every single thing that I'm mentioning today, every podcast I'm going to do, everything I mention, I have lived through, I have done personally, I've been a victim of. Yes, I've had pride before. I sometimes still kind of do here and there, but you catch it. Can't be I got to be, humble about it. Can't be complacent about it. Can't be arrogant about it. There's a lot of pride and stubbornness in the world. The stubbornness, I'm there too. I've had some stubborn times in my life as well. But the nuts and bolts of it all comes down to the concept of being very confident in what you're doing. And that confidence comes from experience. Going back to what I said originally, very beginning of this podcast about failure. How are you going to have experiences without failure? How are you going to, there's no such thing as people having experiences with zero failure. You're going to have failure in some experiences that you're doing in life. It's just going to happen. And again, the old adage everyone says, it's all about how you deal with the failures. How do you bounce back? How do you fall off the horse, you get right back up on the horse and you ride the horse again. You hear all that kind of stuff, but there's a lot of meaning to it. There's a lot of truth to that. So that really, coming from someone who played football. And again, I catch myself talking a lot about myself in football, but I don't want to, impress you in the sense where I'm bragging about stuff. I'm just being real and impressing upon you that anybody can do these kind of things. Like you are so much more capable of what you think you are. And that really boils down to your mindset and what you're able to accept and what you're able to understand that you are going to fail. And that you just have to get good and get better at the system, whatever it is you're doing. Maybe they're clearly Michael Jordan. How many teams did he get cut from, in high school, and how many teams in college? How many rejections did Michael Jordan have? How many shots did he miss? Talk about missing basketball shots. Like, man, that guy missed a ton, but he's Michael Jordan. Look at him now. he's made a lot, of hoops. And I'm not a big basketball fan, but I kind of understand that concept of how many failures a guy like that had, and to get to that level, you're gonna have a lot of failures, but you have to be confident. You have to have that careless confidence in knowing once you've developed the shot. Michael Jordan developed a really good shot. Yes, there's different circumstances and different plays that he would have, different feet that he's coming off of, right foot, left foot, bouncing, falling back, a fadeaway shot, all kinds of different kinds of shots. But he worked on those. They all became part of a system and in different parts of systems within systems that he mastered. Got very good. I don't want to say anybody's ever mastered stuff because you get to the point. You still, when you think you've mastered it, you can still fail. A lot of it maybe come down to the mental side of it. And if you bring in the sport golf, that's really, talk about a mental game. There are a million golfers out there that are very good, right? There's guys out there that could be professional golfers, and maybe they're scratch golfers. They're incredibly good. When you get into the tour stuff, the PGA tours and all these leagues and things like that, where these guys are so good that the number 200 ranked golfer can beat the number 1 ranked golfer any given day. At that level, with so many guys and girls that are so good at that skill of golf, it all really comes down to how do they handle the mental side of it, because they're all physically so good. Golf's been around a million years. The proper technique has kind of been established. The basic foundation of the golf swing is there. If you look at that 200 ranked golfer and put him next to the number 1 ranked golfer, their swings are pretty similar. There might be some subtle differences. John Daly might be a little different as far as the way he swings, but Charles Barkley in the way he swings. Of course, he's not a professional golfer, but there's a lot of different ways of swinging a golf club. But the professionals, the guys are pretty good. They're almost identical. And so when you boil it down to getting people in general, lots of people who are incredibly good at certain skills, the ones that beat the others just have got a better mental attitude about, maybe they were just on that day. You're in the groove. You feel that you're in the zone, right? I've had that too. In football kicking, I've been in the zone. I've had days where I couldn't miss. I'm like, man, this is amazing. And then there's other days that I'm not in the zone, but I gotta try to get back in the zone. And that's another mental aspect as well. But again, you got to throw the careless confidence aspect in there as well, because you can't be overconfident. Clearly, sometimes I've had poor games when I felt really good. Like pregame, I'm like, man, I'm kicking good. Well, guess what? You catch yourself getting a little complacent, and you think, man, I can't miss. And then you go out in the field and you freaking miss a kick. You're like, what the heck? I had a great warm up. My pregame was awesome. Well, you got complacent, Mike. You screwed up. You got lazy. You didn't take it serious because you were so arrogant about yourself. That's exactly what happened. Okay, so really you have to be in real life, real time, in the present moment all the time. And you have got to have that careless confidence in knowing that it really is the system and things that you've done a million times and been successful at. You just have to rely on those under all circumstances too. That's another thing that I was, I guess, complimented on a lot throughout my NFL career, is the fact that I was able to kick under conditions that were kind of poor, like rainy days, slick field conditions. I was one of the better guys. I handled it a lot better. Kicking off, I had people compliment me on back in the day when they had stadiums that they played baseball and football on at the same time, especially in preseason, because they were finishing up the baseball seasons right around, the preseason of football. And they would leave the dirt infield, and you're playing football on a bunch of like hard clay. It's not grippy. There's no traction there. And you got to kick off out of that crap, right? So it's a very big challenge at times. And the guys that freak out and try like, oh, I gotta do something. I gotta kick it harder. And those are the guys who are going to slip and fall or worm burn the kick. They're going to kick it low, wobbly, kick it out of bounds even. I didn't have that attitude. Yes, there's that in the back of your mind. You're like, yeah, you got to kick it a little. I got to hit a solid ball. I got to hit it pretty good. But in the back of your mind, you really, you have to trust, again, the mechanics. You have to trust the system. You have to follow this system because you know the system that you've developed over time, and you've kicked on fields that's not necessarily the clay stuff I'm referring to, but fields that were not great traction. Well, it's the same thing. You're just dealing with the field condition that's not very, you don't have much grip on your plant foot. Who cares? You got to deal with it. So does the other kicker when he's kicking off. Okay. So that's the thing too, is you have to really rely on what you've done in the past and what you've been successful at. And you have to be careless about it. I always bring up that word careless because I want you to understand that it's not a negative, like a nonchalant, an arrogant careless. I'm not referring to an arrogant careless. I'm referring to a careless confident, a confident careless, meaning you don't need to care about what it is, the result. Remember, going back to that point about result driven. If you get caught up into being result driven and you care too much, good luck. You're not going to be very good. You might get lucky here and there, but you're not going to be very good at any skill, whatever it is you're going to do in your life. Again, if you're too confident and careless in an arrogant way, in something that again, you might be a good athlete. You might be pretty good at what you do on a daily basis and get away with some things. But I've seen some incredible athletes with some poor performances. We all have. And I think that comes down to just the attitude, just the complacency, maybe the arrogance, just the attitude where they don't have to work any harder because they've been there, they've done that. I've got all confidence in the world. That's a death trap. That is something you got to watch out for. And I'm telling you, matter of fact, I got interviewed not too long ago from a reporter up in Buffalo, New York, of all places. And he was he wanted to get my opinion about, what's the kicker's attitude and coming into the playoffs. And I was like, well, what the kicker's attitude should be is just another game. Why would it be any different? It's just another game. Just do what you've always done. Why was your job different? Now, on the other end of the spectrum, I'm referring to the other athletes on the field, the linebackers, the quarterback, the receivers and DBs, all the other positions. It's going to be a faster game. I've witnessed it firsthand. Yes, playoffs are, when you closer you get to the Super Bowl, the more speed and the harder hits and the more passion and just blood, sweat, and tears you're going to see. I get that, but I'm a kicker. In my situation, my job didn't change at all. If anything, if anything's going to change, it's not going to be in a good way. If a kicker's approaching a game in a playoff game, or maybe even a specific kick, as if though they have to make it or else, this is a life or death situation. I got to make this kick. Then they might screw up. And again, they might get lucky. They might make the kick because they're good and they have, they might just sneak it in. And that's the other thing. Watch out for it. Watch out for playoff games in the NFL. Watch how kickers are kind of sneaking balls in now and missing. Okay. I think those are the type of guys that are caring too much about or doing something different. When in reality, you don't have to do anything different. Now, again, I'm referring to the kicking position because it is what it is. There's nothing different a kicker has to do just because the game means more. There's nothing. That's why I've always said on game-winning kicks, like people say, how do you deal with the mental stress of a game-winning kick? I'm like, well, this is going to sound really crazy, but I didn't care where the ball went. What do you mean you didn't care where the ball went? You got to be kidding me. You don't care if you miss the kick? Like, I didn't say that. I don't want to care where the ball goes because if I care too much, I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to try really hard to make the kick instead of just doing what I've done a million times in a row. So again, that is a life lesson, I think, that works for a lot of things, general everyday process of life. Just focus on what you've been successful at. But again, it takes some time to whatever it is you're doing in your life. Whatever skill, whatever process, whether it's your health, whether it's your fitness, your whatever skill it is you're doing in your life. Yes, there's a process of learning a system that's the best possible thing that you need to do, and the things that's going to work the best, the system that you've developed over time. But once you get that confidence in knowing that the system is working for you, that's when you can relax. And I'm telling you from personal experience, one of the best feelings in the world, and this is going to sound very crazy for you to hear, one of the best feelings in the world, and I remember this vividly, right in the middle of my NFL career, right in the prime when I was one year I was 30 of 36 on field goals. The next year when I went to the Pro Bowl, I was 31 of 36 on field goals. Weird, I had 36 attempts in 2 years in a row. But those 2 years and the year after that, I believe, was still there as well. Lining up to kick a field goal, just doing my 3 steps back and my 2 steps over, I was thinking to myself, that was the hardest part of the kick. And how hard is it to line up? Anybody in general would know it's a very simple thing to do. You take 3 steps back, you do your little line, you aim, and then you take 2 steps over, 90 degrees, you got to get that pretty good too, especially if you want to be a mechanical kicker. But I was like thinking to myself, now all I have to do is just put my foot on the ball and I've made the kick. And that was the most comforting feeling in the world, because I knew I had so much confidence in my form, because I did it last week. I did it yesterday. I was kicking 3 or 4 days ago. I was kicking 3 months ago, and I was making kicks left and right, not missing them left and right, making them all the time. So why would I have any doubt about my form and my system and my process, my technique? There's no reason for me to doubt myself. And that's where you get that the lack of confidence gives you the second guessing aspect. That's when you start second guessing yourself and doing things differently. And that's when you mess things up. That's when you get too careful. I don't say careless, too careful about making or missing the kick. Another prime example, and we'll finish up with this. When I'm coaching, I've got kids that I've gotten into the Arena League. I've seen these kids kick. They're kicking amazing. They're outside. We'll get them outside. We'll kick them on regular size goalpost. We'll have them kick indoors. Their form is flawless. Like, man, you are getting so good. The balls are, bouncing off their foot, just flying up in the air. Just the sound is really deep, and boom, he's kicking these great balls. Get them into the Arena League. Now the goalpost is half the size that they're used to kicking on. They look so different, and it's pretty obvious. I've done this for a long time. I've seen a lot of kickers and worked with a lot of kickers in 18 years. I've seen a lot of guys that we've gotten to the Arena League specifically because of the narrow goalpost. They kick so much differently because now they've got to put this ball in a smaller target. And when they're kicking outside on a regular goalpost, the ball's going right down the middle every time anyways. Why is it any different? The ball is, in other words, the ball's going where they're aiming. When they're in the Arena League, the ball, if they just kick it the way they learn how to kick it from me, the ball would go where they're aiming. But they don't kick it the way they learned it from me because they're not confident. They're kicking too carefully. They're trying not to miss. Going back to my point about the NFL kickers and why they missed so many extra points the very first year when they moved it back to 33 yards. They didn't want that stigma, the embarrassment of missing an extra point. So they kicked it very, very carefully. That is an issue. That's a problem. So with that said, I'm going to end with this with regards to careless confidence. Understand what that term means. It's a very positive, careless attitude because you're so confident in the system that you've worked really hard in developing and saw a lot of success with. That is the bottom line, and that is the end of my show today. I'm actually loving these podcasts. I love sharing my thoughts, my experiences. I love it. So with that said, I look forward to seeing you guys next Monday night at 5:30. Until then, have a great night, and we will see you next week. Take care.
Thank you for watching Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you next time.